Did you want to add any other intro to that? You know.
No, I think that's solid. I think
Okay.
that
So
yeah, I think that's
I was checking out your We Travel Food blog, and it's actually pretty interesting. The story and why I had you come on is just to talk a little bit about your journey, basically, to have a weed dispensary in Chicago. So, if you want to kind of take us through your journey of starting a dispensary in Chicago in the lottery process.
yeah, sure. So, try to get through it as quickly as possible.
That's
It's
okay.
a lot has
We got
happened.
an hour.
I know, especially in this last week, a whole lot has happened. But so just I'm a real estate agent from Chicago. One of my longtime real estate clients got in the cannabis industry a few years ago. I was looking for ways to get in the industry, so I thought that creating a weed, travel, and food blog, three things I'm really passionate about. I thought that would be a good way to kind of shoehorn my way into the industry where at the time I thought I didn't really know anybody. Turns out again that one of my longtime clients, they are in the industry. So they kind of helped me get started, and they like opened the doors for me, and they just gave me access to their facilities. This company is Viola. They're in California, they're in Michigan, they're in Colorado, they're in Oregon, they're in a couple other states. But they kind of helped me like learn about the industry. Fast forward until to last year when the state of Illinois released the applications for dispensary licenses. One of the things that they put in the bill was that current Illinois operators, the medical companies, the medical cannabis companies, also known as MSOs, which stands for multi-state operators, because most of the medical cannabis companies also operate outside of Illinois in separate states. They're called MSOs. And so the state of Illinois mandated that the MSOs currently operating in Illinois had to help social equity applicants, people that qualified for social equity as social equity applicants like myself. The state required that they had to help them in some way, or they had to give to $100,000 to nonprofit organizations that were helping social equity applicants, things like that. So I was in discussions with several different cannabis companies in Illinois last year about doing everything from helping them with marketing and advertising campaigns to being a brand ambassador for them. One company in particular actually asked to use my image on their marketing materials.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that whole thing happened, but because of that, that got me to thinking when they first asked me that to use my image on their marketing materials, the very next thing out of my mouth was, well, if you want to use my image on your products, then you have to help me write my license and get into the industry.
Right.
They agreed. It didn't go the way that it didn't go well, but I ended up getting a deal with another company, another Illinois company called Columbia Care, and I did the deal with them, and I got my application turned in. We turned in 10 applications on January 2nd, and fast forward to this week on Wednesday, we found out that we didn't make it to the lottery.
Make it right. So it started. Sorry to cut you off, but it started off 700, so a huge number, 700 applicants, and then the lottery
Over
goes
4,000 applications.
crazy, and it goes down rounds down to the license, right?
Well, yes and no. The crazy part about it is, and this is where um, I was kind of really upset about, and just to give people a little bit of background, also, you know, we scheduled to do this interview, this podcast, over a week ago. So let's
Right.
be clear. We
Yeah.
didn't. We're not talking right now because of what happened. We had already scheduled
We
this.
we talked about doing it months ago.
It's just serendipitous, yeah, over a month ago,
Right.
right? But it's just serendipitous that this will happen right now because it's great. Because I want to make a couple things clear, right?
Mhm.
Number one, over 700 applications applied for
Right.
75 licenses. 21 out of 700 made it through to the lottery round.
Right.
And there's a lawsuit right now, not from me, but from other people that applied. I'm debating about whether I'm going to join that lawsuit or other lawsuits that I know that are on their way to be filed. But 700 applicants being narrowed down to 21 for 75 licenses is not social equity. Right. let's just be 100% clear. And I had said a couple of things on my social media, things like, well, I knew this was going to happen. And I know people were wondering, like, well, if you knew it was going to happen, why would you apply? If you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you say anything? And so I just wanted to give people a little bit of insight on why I thought the way I was thinking, and kind of like my thought process going through the whole thing. So number one, I knew from the beginning that it was doomed to fail. And the reason that I say that is because if you read the application, the way that the point system is set up, number one, is binary. So you either get all the points for a certain thing or you get none of the points. If something is worth 10 points, there's no way you get 5 points on it or you get 6 points. You either get all 10 or you get none, right? So it's very cutthroat like that. But the other thing was that the way the laws, the license and the scoring system was set up, veterans got an extra 5 points. Right, you got an extra 5 points for being a veteran. Now they're only giving out 75 licenses for the entire state. I know that there are more than 75 veterans in the state of Illinois that are capable of getting a perfect score, right? So the way it looked to me from the very beginning was that these were only going to go to veterans, right? Because veterans are going to there's all now I come from a family that has a lot of veterans in it. I'm really close to my aunt. She's a vet, my cousins, uncles, all this. So I have no problem with veterans getting licenses. But my issue is that the way that the state set up and promoted the program, it was for anybody had an opportunity to get in. But anybody didn't have an opportunity to get in because they put those veteran points in. So if you're not a vet and when I say veteran points, the entity that applied for the licenses had to be 51% owned by a veteran. The company, so that means, again, if a veteran did not own 51% of the company that applied, they did not get those 5 extra points, which proved to be crucial when 4,000 applications are going after 75 licenses. So
my question to you is was that Toy Hutchison that set those rules up, or is that
no.
Is that the Illinois Assembly?
That's the Illinois Assembly.
Okay. Because I know she is they call her the pot czar, and I know she was talking about, I was looking at interview she did in the Thompson Center where she was talking about points, just of what you said, and she was talking about giving out people extra points because somebody looking from the outside in, it's like I've seen your articles with the Sun Times. I see her talking about it, but it's just kind of like I'm kind of removed. It's interesting to look at. That's why I have you here. But I'm far removed from it. You're deep into it. So that's why I think it's a pretty interesting story, and especially as far as the point system goes.
Yeah, I mean the Black Caucus is making a big deal out of this right now. So now from what I'm hearing, they want to cause some ruckus and they want to slow up now this lottery.
Yeah, it's the Black and Latino.
I can't say that I blame them, but they wrote this bill and then they passed it. Right? They wrote the bill and then they passed the bill, and now they're surprised that they got the results that they wrote in. They wrote it to be like that, and again, I cannot stress this enough because I have friends, family members, and business associates who all wanted to apply with me on the license, on going after these licenses. And my attorney will tell you this. I said from the very beginning, if you are not a veteran, you will not win. If you don't have a veteran-owned entity, I should say, to apply for these licenses, you will not win. So now the question is, people say, well, why did I apply? The reason why I apply, if you go back to what was going on during that time for me last year, this time, I was talking to several companies about working with them. One company in particular asked to use my image on their marketing material, and my response to them was, if you want to use my image, you have to help me apply for my licenses. This is before I even fully understood the veteran points and how I wasn't going to get it if I wasn't a veteran.
Right.
That company went ahead and used my image without my agreement.
That's funny.
Right. And so now I'm in it. Now I'm like fighting with them to get them to do what they said, because they agreed to help me, but then they didn't. But I'm fighting with them to do it. I got other companies that are approaching me. So I'm talking to a bunch of different companies. I go ahead and I partner with one of the MSOs, because I'm thinking, well, the state would have to know that if they give all these licenses to veterans, that's discrimination within itself as well in some forms. Like you can't say you're doing this for everybody and everybody has a shot when really only veterans have a shot, because you're only giving out 75 licenses. So I know it's naive. I naively thought that the state would recognize that and have a few set-aside apps, a few set-aside licenses to say, okay, these people are working with MSOs that we've already approved, right? The state already licensed these people. So I would think that they wouldn't want everybody, thinking from the state perspective, I would think that the state would want some people to come in with some guidance, with some people that could actually, that are already familiar with the state system, kind of help us through it. I didn't have no problem with that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna partner with them. I'm gonna have, I'm working with the big boys. Yeah, I'm working with Big Canna, but fine. They make money, I make money. Now we're in the industry. That's how we get it done. I didn't realize that the state wasn't even going to reward the companies that play ball with them.
Okay, so
so all these different MSOs operating in Illinois, they all had different programs where they helped social equity applicants apply for license. Not all of them, but most of them did.
Well, my question,
none of those people won.
my question was just what you just said. So the big cannabis companies, I was reading something, are they also trying to get into the equity movement too, and they're trying to bully? So basically it's like capitalism over and over and over again, where big businesses coming in and they're saying, oh, well, we're for the equity in the company, or the equity in the communities, I'm sorry. And when you talk about the big cannabis companies coming into the community, the money doesn't stay there. And I was reading that when you went to a meeting about, was it zoning? I believe it was zoning, and you said that I don't know if that's your moment or not, when you realize I want to be an owner and not a worker, because why work there when I can own this? When you're looking at pennies and then you're looking at whole dollars. So I just was reading about how you said, wait a minute, you guys are tricking us right now. And they went, oh, okay. And they changed that so that it was different. Could you explain that part?
Yeah. So that was back when the city did their very first zoning meetings at Malcolm X College. They were doing them at several different city colleges, but the very first meeting was at Malcolm X College last October. And the meeting was about where they were going to allow dispensaries to go in the cities. And at the time, the city's position was that they only wanted dispensaries to be in the neighborhoods and not downtown Chicago, because they said that they wanted to do it for jobs, and they wanted people in these neighborhoods to have jobs.
Right.
And I stood up in the middle of the assembly, and this is how I actually got in the paper the very first time, because I stood up in front of everybody and raised my hand, and I said, that doesn't make any sense. I said, you guys are looking at this as the people who work in who are from these neighborhoods, as if they only want to work for these companies, and as if they can't be owners themselves in these companies. And because the problem is, if you tell these multi-state operators, these MSOs, that they can't spend these are billion-dollar companies, $100 million companies, right? They have resources allocated already for real estate. I know this, right? They already have their real estate money set to the side. If you tell them they can't spend that money downtown, which is where they want to be anyway, because they want that tourism money.
Well, but you don't agree with them being downtown?
Well, how am I get to that? I'm gonna tell you why. If they can't go downtown, what they're gonna do is they're gonna come into my neighborhood and buy up all the limited amount of real estate where you can put a dispensary. Because again, think about this: cannabis is highly regulated, right? So you can't put a dispensary anywhere. There's only few places you can put them in each neighborhood. So if those big companies who already have a head start, remember they opened up their second location started in January of this year. We just found out whether or not we got our licenses on Thursday.
Already behind.
So they have 8 months to buy up all the real estate that where I want to go. So that was my thing. Why force them to come out to my neighborhood when they don't really want to be there anyway?
Anyway,
Yeah, they want to
give me
be
your money and go. We out.
and so they're gonna take up all my shit, and then I can't afford to go downtown, even if you allow me to go downtown. So let them go downtown and get that downtown tourism money, and let me get my neighborhood, and let other people from the neighborhood have an opportunity to actually do something.
Right, it goes full circle when you do it that way.
And so when I said that, yeah, I guess they agreed with me, and then they changed the rules and opened it up downtown. Yeah.
It's really something when you look at how much control. Like I would imagine that weed cannabis will be controlled, but just when you look at how down to every detail it is, you can only do a certain thing, but everybody else can do all of these wild things. And like you said, you're behind the game, getting into just having the license and starting up. And I never even thought about that point of them buying up the real estate. So even if you do get the license, you still got to come through us to do.
Where you going to go?
Right, that's kind of insane. But also, so what are your thoughts on Lori Lightfoot and the mayor of Chicago and how she's going about as far as weed business in Chicago? What grade do you give her? What would you like to see different in the city perspective?
Right now, the way that everything is done in cannabis in every state is kind of from a top-down approach. So everything is really coming from the state at this point. Lori Lightfoot, besides where they want dispensaries to be, there's not really much that she has in the process right now. So all of my criticism that I do have for the Illinois cannabis industry right now all go to the governor's office.
Okay. So what
the governor's office.
What do you rate him?
Yeah, they fucked like a F. It's just I have tried so hard. I have talked to a whole lot of pessimistic, cynical people throughout this entire process, right? And one thing I have tried to do is look at the bright side and say, again, like, they're like, well, only veterans are going to get it. I'm like, well, they can't really do that though, right? And I'm like, well, they're going to, they would have to, they wouldn't really do people like that. Or people are like, oh, it's going to be rigged and it's all the big names that's going to get it. I'm like, well, they have to show who actually won. So they wouldn't be ballsy enough to actually apply themselves and have their own people that work for their companies, go after these licenses. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, because didn't you talk about the one where a company approached you and say, you be the equity for, front man, and then you're still owned by us. Did you talk about that one?
Yeah, so during the dispensary round and during the cultivation round, I had two separate companies approach me and ask me would I basically be fronts for them to apply because I'm social equity. I qualify as social equity, but they're large, multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies from all that already have licenses in several other states, and they're just looking for bodies. Right. Social equity bodies specifically. And so they approached me, one company, which was one of the most disgusting moments of my life. And I was so upset about it that I was almost in tears because I didn't want to go into this meeting. I felt so bad, but I decided to take the meeting anyway. This one company, they asked me to meet them at Trump Tower. And that's what I said. I was just like, I was like, the balls on these people, right? They got huge fucking balls. You know what I'm saying? To ask me to meet them in Trump Tower to discuss with them while I was sell out. And I took the meeting. It was one of those things, again, I was so upset about it. And I didn't want to take the meeting. And I talked to my mother, and my mother was like, Mike, you got to take these meetings sometimes. It's just a position you in. Take the meeting. You don't have to say yes, but just listen. So I went, and I still say no. So that was one company. And like I said, they basically wanted me to be a friend. Another company during the cultivation round, they wanted me to put on the application that I was going to be 100% owner. But they wanted me to sign paperwork with them right then and there that in 2 years, I agreed to sell 80% of the company to them.
Wow.
That's what I said. No, I'm going to tell you what's really crazy about that. They were stupid enough to put that in an email. Now, I wouldn't expose them because it don't matter. They didn't win anyway, but it just shows you. I don't know if they win, man. They might still win, but it showed me how crooked and how dirty this shit really was. And to another point of that, another company that I work with, that I was talking about working with, was Verano, one of the largest companies. They have the largest market share in the state of Illinois. Yeah. At the time when I was talking to Verano last year about their social equity applicants, it was amazing to me how little fucks they gave about it. Like, they didn't give a fuck about social equity. I'm like, yo, I'm a social equity applicant. I think they was like, nah, we don't care about that shit. If you
we make
like, yo, we don't care about that shit. Yeah. Like, fuck that shit. If you want a license, you can pay for one. You can pay us and we will write one for you, but we're not doing no social equity shit. They have the top slots in the lottery. In the social equity lottery. They got their real estate guy. They got a guy that works for their real estate company to apply, and that's who won the most.
Probably more because he's insider on it.
They have a winning app. They have a winning app, and so instead of using a public social equity applicant, somebody that they don't have a relationship with, they use somebody that works for their company. And then they won them all. They won them all, yo. Like, that shit was so fat. And then, of course, like again, it's supposed to be social equity. Social equity is supposed to be, people that come from disadvantaged areas, people who have like police records, people who have been hurt by the war on drugs.
Right. Yeah.
The Verano guys have the most slots in the lottery, I believe, and the second highest slot winner with the most slots is the guy that owns Tavern and Rush in the Gold Coast.
Oh wow, yeah,
that was so foul.
That's insane.
Like at the time, I was like really hopeful for the state of Illinois. I talked to people all over the country that work in cannabis, and everybody was looking for Illinois to be the gold standard because of the way that the bill was created. Right, we were the first state to actually have cannabis be legalized through legislation and not by ballot vote, right? And so it was a lot of things that were put in, and people thought that Chicago was going to be the example, Illinois was going to be the example for how social equity was supposed to work.
Yeah, but they probably didn't take the Chicago politics in the equation of that, big deal. Well, yeah, Illinois too. We've got more governors going to prison.
Yeah.
But that you mentioned that too, it is going to affect, or it is affecting 770,000 people's record. That the governor's office, the Cook County state's attorney's office are looking at expunging those records, and it's kind of like it's a fight, because you would think that they would be magically erased, but it is an ongoing fight that people have to get their records clean, basically, for something that is legal now. That it's I think Obama had said it best. You needed a federal mandate for weed, because what's legal in one state, in another state, you could get 20 years for it. Yeah. So it's kind of dangerous, and you kind of need to know. You kind of need to know where you can smoke weed, the who's and what's and nots. Because I heard that it was, you cannot smoke in a car, you cannot smoke out in public, but you can do it in your home. So I just hope that people are keeping up with the law, because I always consider, I don't smoke, but I always consider it as, think of it as alcohol. You can't be intoxicated in a public way. You can't be, skipping down the street singing "It's a New Day," but you can do it.
You just can't do it with a bottle.
But
you can't do it with an open obby. You can do it if the bottle is in the bag, right? Right. You just gotta know the laws. I think that when it comes to things like where you can smoke, that is going to be more local municipalities. That's when that's going to come into play. And the mayor I was on a couple committees last year and this year before the whole coronavirus. I was meeting with the mayor's office like twice a week, meet with a lot of other local advocates and people that are already in the industry. We were meeting with the mayor locally to kind of help smooth out some of these details about where you can smoke and how it's permissible. I don't know if you saw, it was a while ago. It was a report in the paper that said, even though it's legal, you can't smoke on your front porch. Right. And then the mayor came out and said, no, you can smoke on your front porch. And they couldn't, so it's like all those type of little things. Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff will get smoothed out over time. I really think that, like, that's That's what they want people to be focused on. What they don't want people to be paying attention to is how they're giving these licenses away, right? They
Oh,
just gave $1 billion worth of licenses away to 21 companies. And on top of that, those people don't actually have a license yet. They just have the possibility for winning a license in the lottery. It could actually end out way, way worse, where if you do the math, because they gave each entity the opportunity, each entity has the opportunity to win 10 licenses.
mm-hmm.
If you do the math, 21 companies, 75 licenses could possibly go to 8 people.
Right.
It's fucking
Yeah.
crazy. You know, like that's so fucking foul.
But so what I guess the question that I have for you is what would you like to see from the governor's office or the Illinois Assembly as far as licenses go?
Yeah.
Would you like to see 100 licenses? Would you like to see, because is that when available? Is that per year? Is what is
yeah. So the way that it's scheduled, they're going to be issuing licenses every 2 years. So the application started in 2019. Licenses get awarded supposedly in 2020. Applications start in 2021, and licenses get awarded in 2022. That's the way it's supposed to go. Mm-hmm. I think that's fine. I definitely think they need to open up more, right? That's one of the biggest problems was that they put out so few licenses. They made them the process extremely, the competition just crazy, and people were just losing everything just to go after it, doing everything they could. So that's one problem. They definitely need to award more licenses, which they are. The next round, I believe 100. This round only 75 were awarded. I think 100 to 125 are to be awarded in the next round. And then again, there's going to be rounds every 2 years. So every 2 years, they're going to be giving out more licenses. So that's the way it's going. So that's that. I think just in general about the way that the scoring systems need to be different, right? Number one, get rid of the veteran point system. Those 5 extra points for being a veteran screwed over a lot of people. And again, I'm fine with the veterans getting their opportunity. But the way I look at it now, the veteran round was just what passed. That was the veteran, like that was for vets. So those 75 licenses are going to vets. It wasn't, maybe the state will say, well, we didn't intend it to be that way, but that's the reality of what happened. So let that be what it is, right? Those 75 people got licenses. Take that out for all the next rounds. We don't need any more vets getting preferential treatment in that way. I think the other thing that they need to do is I think they need to do something where if you score a certain amount of points in the next round, and there's a lottery to be had, then they should you automatically qualify for the lottery, and you don't necessarily have to have a perfect score. If you reach a certain threshold, then you automatically qualify for the lottery. The other thing that I think they could do that to really make, because it's a lot of people who spend a lot of money just getting through. It's a very expensive process to write these applications. People that I talked to that were actually charging people to write the applications were charging anywhere between $80,000 and $150,000 just to write an application that you have no guarantees that you're going to win anything, right? So a lot of people spend a lot of time, money, energy writing these licenses. One thing that they can do moving forward that the state really, really needs to do is allow people who have already applied to resubmit in the next round and not have to pay those fees again.
Right.
Let them resubmit with their same applications without having to pay those fees. I think that's major, because for a lot of different reasons. We're already in a depression, terrible economic situation in the country right now. People don't have money to be paying an extra $2,500 after they've been strung along for this entire year and just watch their dreams just get crushed in front of them by large MSOs that already have the largest market share in the state of Illinois. So let those people. And then I think the other thing that they really need to do is, I think, and this is a little more controversial. This kind of goes more into my ideas about things like reparations and stuff like this. And this is something that I really think that all states need to address. And I don't know how you do this without getting a lawsuit. And that is, they need to have some set aside licenses for people of color that come from these neighborhoods. Period.
You don't think that would come up in the future though?
Set aside for people of color specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Not unless it's pushed. And I can tell you why it wouldn't, because it's racial discrimination. You know, that's what people on the other side would say. Well, if you say black people are guaranteed to get those licenses, you're offending my constitutional
Right.
right.
Yep.
You're discriminating me based on race. But this is the thing, and this is a bigger issue. When we think about the civil rights movement, right? And civil rights was great. But one of the reasons why it was so great was because those rights that we were fighting for applied to everyone. So everyone was able to bring civil rights to everyone of every race, every color was able to benefit off of the civil rights movement that Black people had, right? So I think that the same thing happens with the social equity program, right? The social equity program, in the paperwork, it says they want to address people of color that have been discriminated against and have been wrong over policed. Their neighborhoods have been wrong over policed, and Black people by far have been arrested way more than white people for having cannabis and cannabis use. It sounds good. But what happens when you actually go through the process is you still have white people that overwhelmingly win in a situation that is meant for people of color. And the reason why is because it's not written in the law that Black people get these licenses. Right. So instead, you have the dude on the Tavern and Rush that wins all these licenses. I know so many people that have complained about Tavern and Rush on the year. They don't even like Black people going in there. Like, you know, depending on how you dress. Now, I'm you know me, again, I weed, traveling the food. I eat everywhere. I go everywhere. I never had a problem, but I know that these issues existed because I know professional athletes that have been turned away from Tavern and Rush because of the clothes that they had on. Yeah. Right? So that's who's winning. Again, people like Verano don't give a fuck about social equity. They don't give a fuck about hiring Black people to even work in their own company. They don't give a fuck about working with the community. They don't give a fuck about like promoting Black Lives Matter. None of that shit. Right. They do not care, but they won the social equity rounds. And that's what I'm saying.
They want that money.
Yo, so I don't know how the state does that. And I think that's a bigger conversation. Again, I think that has more to do with reparations and all this other stuff, because I think it has to be one of the main reasons. I know you want to talk about politics as well and violence and stuff like that. And I think one of the main reasons that we see the stuff that goes on in our community is because the government took direct action against Black people, right? They specifically said you cannot sell real estate to Black people in this neighborhood. Black people are not allowed to move in here. Right. They specifically said that Black people cannot get their homes here. They can't. Black people specifically cannot get bank loans, right, from certain companies. Yep. Black people cannot work certain places. They can't hold certain positions in certain companies. Until the government takes the same direct action to help Black people that they took directly to hurt Black people, Black and brown people, it will never be fair.
Right.
It'll never be fair.
Well, so, and I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I think too that you have to look at, especially when you're talking about homes and mortgages and all these things, I think that we have to get more laws passed to make it permanent. That mortgages and loans and all lines of credit have to be made into law. And I think even if you look at the current president now, undid a lot of what Obama did as far as mortgages goes and racial discrimination in those loans.
Housing discrimination.
And if you look at it across the board and you say, oh well, he's such a great for real estate, he's great for property, he's great for business, but when you look at an equal platform for everybody, he's undoing a lot of things. And I don't even think that he even cares about it being minorities, Black, brown, and otherwise. But I think that he wants it for my business. This is what Trump organization wants and what we benefit off of. I don't even think he believes it's all base. It's all what the base wants. And it's
Yeah,
all
yeah, and it's really all perception too. And if you think about it, it's really perception of a time that's already passed already, right? Like he's like, oh, we're gonna make it so that black people can't move into the suburbs. But that's not really the conversation that people are having in these major cities. Like maybe, but really, when black people are really more worried about not being able to move into the suburbs. First of all, I live in the suburbs already, so it's like it's a ridiculous conversation. But the more important thing is just that black people and brown people are really more concerned with gentrification of their historical neighborhoods, right? They're worried about gentrification. So it's not that white people are worried about black people moving into white people as well. They're not worried about black people moving into their neighborhoods. It's in the suburbs. White people are moving back into the city.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's what's happening. White people are moving to the city and they're buying up property in neighborhoods that they normally wouldn't move into. So it's a conversation that misses completely what's actually happening.
And it's like it's more of a scare tactic. Oh, these people are gonna come with face mask on, robbing the town and coming into your house.
He said Cory Booker, like
like
who's afraid of Cory Booker?
No one.
Like running into burning houses, saving children.
Right.
I think
more people would be scared of Lindsey Graham coming to the suburbs, but grinning and stuff like Ned Flanders. Yeah. But I think that it's more, again, I don't think he believes the stuff that he says. I don't think he believes that for a second that everyone in the neighborhood basically is what he's making it will come in, will be from the projects, or will be I guess to ghetto up the community. And I just think that it's a scare tactic. If you vote for me, then I'm going to keep your suburbs clean, which you can keep people out up until a certain point. Even with HUD housing, you can only do so much. You still cannot, even if they come in with Section 8 or anything else.
Here's the thing. People got cars. Again, this right. I don't know why they think like the boundaries don't exist in that way anymore, right? And the riots should have shown people that more than anything, right? Like, yeah, they fucked up their own neighborhoods, but they also went downtown, right? They went to the Gold Coast and fucked that shit up. That's not their neighborhoods. You can't keep people bound up like, oh, we just gonna keep them over here. No, if they really want to touch you, they'll touch you.
They got a way to get there, right? And even public transit too. But I just think that he is. It's hard to place it. I don't feel like he believes the shit he says.
He doesn't, but to me that almost makes it worse, right? Because what he is he's a puppet master in the way that he's just a con man, right? And he'll say anything to. It's one of the things I read a lot of books, and so I have books on how the mind works and how people think and how to convince people and how to win arguments, how to negotiate, all these different type of things. Mm-hmm. And so one thing that I see him doing a lot of times is he repeats stuff over and over again, and
makes it true.
And it doesn't matter if it makes sense. It doesn't matter if there's any evidence for it. He just says it over and over and over again. And what happens is, and it's so funny because for years I've always operated under the opinion that most of the people out here are fucking idiots, right? Just most of the general public are fucking idiots. They cannot think for themselves. They followers. They just repeat. They parrot whatever they hear the most. And he knows that, right? So fuckers people like, oh man, he's crazy and he's this. I'm like, I'm not so sure he's crazy. He's calculating. He's very calculated and he does stuff on purpose. It's not all crazy. It's not crazy. It's intentional. People are like, oh, he's so stupid. I'm like, I'm not so sure. You know what I'm saying? If he's dumb, and that's the biggest thing too. I think that the United States is actually lucky that he's dumb in some ways that he says shit openly, and he's so lucky. We're lucky only that we don't have someone who's more charming and who's more thoughtful, but still as evil as Trump,
Well,
and to like hide the stuff that he does.
A lot of people see him as charming, though. A lot of people see him as relatable, which I don't know how many people can relate to a billionaire. But he's managed that. That's charming in a way to me, because he says that, and if you ask people that love him, oh, my boy Donnie, he tells it like it is. So I think a lot of people think that he's very charming. He's the smartest businessman out since P.T. Barnum. He is, a lot of things that they win him over. He either tells it like it is, or everybody goes through bankruptcy, or all of these crazy things that makes it okay to vote for him, or makes it okay, the businessman that he is. But you shadow out, and the argument always is I'm not saying that Barack Obama is not perfect. I'm not saying Joe Biden is perfect, but it's when those two make mistakes and I don't agree to it, I say I didn't like that. I think the thing of the Trump base is that when he makes those mistakes, or he says African countries are shitholes, he said that about Barack Obama. I've never seen a black leader run a country successfully. And he said, look at what Mandela did. He ruined it. And so it's when you make comments like that, and it's alleged. Cohen said that it's alleged, but it goes right along with what he says, and that tell it like it is, right? So when you talk about him being a smart idiot, is I guess is the
he's a smart dummy,
but he's
a smart dummy, or he just what he is. He's a typical con man. Yeah, he's a typical con man. I watch American Greed a lot.
I love that. I love that series. I love it.
Like, man, these people are so smart, but they do some of the dumbest shit, right? Yeah. And he's a perfect example of that. Like, except I would say it the opposite way. He's a dumbass, but some things he does, I'm like, I can see why that works. So people that are like, oh, he's so charming, what he does is he projects his own insecurities onto other people, and that is something that many people do. So it's relatable.
It's like a mind fuck, like switcheroo.
Yeah, but it's like whatever you say about me, I'm rubber, you glue. Whatever you say, right, bounce off me and stick to you. Like that's people that's their mindset.
Was that on American Greed, where he was completely bankrupt and he started earlier saying how he was already a billionaire and how he had so much money already? And the thing of it was, he tricked people into giving him the billions of dollars. So in theory, I haven't seen his bank account or his tax returns. A lot of people haven't, but in theory, it's supposed to be he's a billionaire through loan. He's a billionaire loaner.
He's a billionaire through Russian loans too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the point where again, like
Chinese loans. He's with the
Russia in particular. Like if you really go back, because I've been just fascinated by this whole thing. But if you just go back to look at how he got his money, he got about $40 million from his father, and then still went bankrupt, right? But in the 80s and the 90s, he started working with Russians who were buying property. They were basically laundering money by buying his high-end properties in his buildings and buying them up. So that's how he was this quote-unquote successful developer, because he had Russians that were money laundering through his properties. And again, me being a real estate agent, I know what that, I've seen that. Like I've seen that before. Again, I've been working in real estate for over almost 20 years now. I know what that looks like. It's clear to me. And that's what was happening, right? And so, and this is not just my thoughts. This is something that's been well documented. So that happened, and then he still was a failed businessman because he was still a con man. He's making steaks, and he got an airline, and he got a university, and all this stuff. But everything, he's taking money, he's spending it, he's losing money. He's not a businessman, right? And so then the banks that loaned him money stopped loaning him money because he kept fucking up the bag, right? So the only place that he could go was to Russia, who needed somebody to help them launder their money anyway. Mm-hmm. So they gave him money, and then he used that for his projects. The Trump Tower downtown has some Russian money in it. Like, that's being investigated right now. Even though he didn't build that, something funny with that happening with the financing. And I know that that's being discussed right now. I just wonder since the 80s, how he's gotten away with this long. Because if you look at, I don't know if privilege. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the story of Roy Cohn. Mm-hmm.
But he had a really interesting story. He was ruthless and all of these other things, but he was the start of, if what I paid attention to with Roy Cohn was, he, as soon as the IRS questioned his money in his accounts, he said, "I will never use a bank again." Roy Cohn was one that worked for the government and very close with Donald Trump, and was another person that money laundered. And through his business up until he died, um, all never used checks or cards. He always used cash. And Roy Cohn was another one in New York to eat and not pay for dinners. I'm like, how does this? If I walk out of a place and not pay for food, I'm going out in cuffs. But
White privilege, bro. I'm trying to tell you.
a lot of Steve Bannon money laundering. I don't know if you've seen that one with the wall. Who was the other guy with those that looked like the penguin that just went down with the blonde hair? Who did the Richard Nixon?
Oh, Roger Stone.
Roger Stone was looked into for money laundering. Trump's sister, Marion Trump Berry, resigned from being a judge when
he wouldn't have to face the investigation.
Money laundering. Fred Trump, the dad, started the money laundering, and even if you, when you look at the story of Trump coming up, he even if you look at the story coming up, he forced his way because Fred Trump Jr. was supposed to get the money, was supposed to get the inheritance, and he bullied him into alcoholism and made him that he's out for himself. And talking about the Trump tapes, if you look at Marion Barry Trump, she was talking crazy about Donald Trump and said he's only out for himself. Ivanka's the next Donald Trump. Eric Trump's a loser. But if you start looking at the family, which I personally, a political move, I love that the family is crumbling because of how they did Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and Bo Biden. Bo Biden's doing it. And I like that the aunt's coming out. I like that the cousin or the niece of Donald Trump is coming out with the book. That's where the tapes came out at. And that's where you see the family is like sworn to secrecy and NDAs and, all of these other things. But when you look at how he bullied his way always, that technique has worked for him since his adulthood, since the time he was adult up until now. That same thing, the macho of he made Donald Trump. And I just don't think, my personal opinion, I do not think that the kids of Donald Trump will be able to make a name as he did. I think once Daddy goes,
they can't even be on non-profit organizations no more. They can't even start a charity.
They can't. Stealing money from kids for cancer.
Yeah, they were stealing money from vets and then buying pictures of themselves and paying off lawsuits.
But I do think that I do think another smart political move is Ivanka Trump being a White House advisor. Now she's got government experience. I don't know what she does, but she's White House advisor. But now she has government experience. Government experience nationally. She's got international experience. This is smart for her to run for president. So, Don Jr., they want him to be up next at bat for president after Donnie. They want to do the Trump dynasty after he trashed the Bushes and the Kennedys and all these other dynasties. But now Ivanka will be the next one to run. And he already said it. Ivanka will be the next. Ivanka will be the next one to run Republican for president, and that's a smart thing to do
because they'll probably be in jail before that. I'm pretty sure.
I think they're gonna skate it. I think the only one that'll go down is Donald Trump. But I think the kids will skate it, even if Don and Eric Jr. Even if both of them go down with the Trump organization, they'll pay money, but they'll skate jail. Though I think.
Yeah, I don't think at this point, with everything that's going on, I have zero faith in the systems anymore. I got no faith. So I never thought that Trump was gonna win. He won. I never thought that all that stuff would come out and they wouldn't impeach him or that he wouldn't get voted out of office. That happened. I never thought that the state of Illinois would give all of the licenses to veterans. They did. I never thought that they would allow a large MSO currently operating in the state of Illinois to win all the chancellor licenses. That happened. I got zero faith in it no more. I'm about to be a Super Bowl. It's all a scam. No.
But you know what? I think where it gets muddled. It's always the money. It always gets muddled in the money. And when you talk about even weed licenses. How is the state going to profit more from weed sales? What was the? I wrote it down. Weed sales
60
are
million.
239 million as of
Oh,
June.
wow, yeah.
So it's not even. It's not even. The year's not even over yet. 239 million in sales, and from that, the state got 52 million in taxes, and 34.7 million in excise tax. So the production of, I mean, it's a crazy amount of money. I guess this is probably my most interesting thing, um, is how much money is going into this and why they will not make this get rid of the national prohibition of weed and just make it legal everywhere.
Okay. Okay. So now that's a good thing, right? So a lot of people are talking about that. Make it legal nationally. It sounds good, right? It sounds good. And I'm for it, but there's things to consider. And one of the biggest things to consider is if people think these large MSOs are making things unfair right now, then imagine what happens when big pharma comes in.
Oh, absolutely. It's still the same game.
Dude, when they legalize it federally, that means that all of these companies with federal with federal contracts and stuff, now they can start bidding. Yo, they will wipe out the small people. Like you think people think
They
it's
will.
fucked now. Just
They
wait
will.
until they make it federally legal.
But look at history with housing. They did it with housing. They brought out housing eventually. And I'd go say it's going to happen like a drop of a hat. But look at something as the housing authority. Look at the weed authority and how they're going to give people licenses. I mean, it's not like I said, it's not going to be the immediate future, but you have to look at, hey, what you said. You're going to have to do a federal lawsuit, say that minorities, black and brown, other minorities, Asian, are not getting the licenses nationwide. This is a problem. Then, like you said, then it'll happen. But I just still don't think that should be enough to say that federally that we should not have this pass. And I mean, at least do it if you. I'll throw this one to you. At least do it nationally for medical purposes.
Yeah.
Still
No,
not
I mean,
all
I would love to see it. You know, I would definitely love to see it. You know, I just think, you know, again, everything now is like a double-edged sword, right?
yeah.
Even right now, there's lawsuits in the state coming in the state of Illinois for these licenses that just got issued. But who benefits from the licenses not being issued and the lawsuits and everything being delayed anymore? Who benefits from that? The current operators.
Oh yeah. Oh,
the same
yeah.
person, the same person that fucked it all up and won all those licenses, they win at the end of the day because
But
it
it's
just
full
gives them
circle
more of a
around.
monopoly. They slow it down, it's a
Oh
monopoly.
yeah.
You give it to us, we still got the monopoly.
Well, and then
It's all fucked.
I'm not opposed to also weed commission, just like they wanted to do a reparations commission. Why doesn't the Senate start a weed commission and see what would the problems be? Have
Yeah.
somebody from every ethnicity on there to talk about what the troubles are in those communities. Why does it always have to be, oh, we're reactive to it instead of proactive to, or look at those states like Illinois, look at the states of Colorado has been doing it, for a little bit now. So, do you think that Denver, Colorado, is the weed mecca? What do you think about that? Have you been to Denver?
Definitely been. I have been to Denver. It's close to being the weed mecca.
Mecca, okay. That's
It's
what when I
close to
think
it.
weed, I think about.
Yeah, actually, I mean, people will tell you California is really California, and it's a trifecta, honestly, in my opinion. California, Colorado, and Oregon. They all are kind of meccas in their own ways. Oregon actually produces the most cannabis in the entire country.
Oh wow, okay. I
Yeah,
know you
Oregon
just
is.
went to Oregon recently, right? Was that like
Yeah, I was in Oregon at the end of
April?
February. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you were in February.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wonder that because I know a lot of people, I know a few people that have been to Denver and they're like, I can't wait to go back. Like it was so
No,
wild.
Denver is dope. Denver is super
Yeah.
dope. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love Denver. Yeah, no, honestly, just the way I think take the weed out of it, right? I think the bigger issue that needs to be solved, and this kind of goes into everything that's happened this summer. Again, going back to reparations, I read a book earlier this year called The Color of Law. Before reading that book, I really wasn't super hung up on reparations. I thought it was a good idea. Well, actually, what I thought when I thought of reparations was I thought that any number that you offer me would be too low, right? I'm like, well, how do you pay damages for rape, murder, kidnapping, separation of families,
Right.
servitude for hundreds of years. I'm like, the idea of reparations was offensive to me. Actually, I was offended. Then I read the book, The Color of Law, which really explained how the government sanctioned racism and segregation in housing, and how that directly affected money values
Like
and
people's
people's
economy.
finances, how it created these slums and these ghettos that we now know about. We all know that the government and the CIA and the feds dump drugs into these neighborhoods, but before they dump the drugs into these neighborhoods, and flood the neighborhoods with guns, they first put us all in one area.
Right.
They concentrated us, and then they dropped it in. Then they dropped the drugs in. Then they dropped the guns in, and then they kept us poor so that we had to turn to those guns or drugs. So I say all that to say that, again, I think that whether it's weed licenses or monetary, the government, the federal government and the local governments need to look at reparations again for Black people, people of color in general, but specifically Black people. And they need to make the same efforts to address these issues, whether they are putting set aside licenses and say these licenses are going to Black people. Okay, to 10 out of the 75, 20 out of the 75, those are going to Black people. We're going to identify them. We're going to interview them. We're going to make sure that they have full control over these companies. That's how you get real equity. You can't do it and just say, well, if you lived in a certain area for the last 10 years,
Right.
then now you qualify as social equity, because gentrification happens. Right. So some of these people that qualify as social equity, they live in Westtown. Westtown used to be bad. Right. Them like $800,000 homes over there right now. Like, it's not what it used to be.
But really quickly, because we're running out of time, what do you think about the Chicago casino? So you being a realtor, you being a broker, what do you think about where should the Chicago casino go? Because they're talking about 111th Street in a Bishop Ford. They're talking about the old Michael Reese Hospital. They're talking about 31st and Cottage.
Yep.
And over by Guaranteed Rate Field. What do you think of what?
I hate all those areas. They need to go put that shit up in Andersonville. Okay.
You know what? I think it should go next to Navy Pier on the water.
That could be good even. Yeah. Do not put that shit in our neighborhoods. Do not.
Not on 111. That's so much space over there. I think they can get away with 111. It's a lot of trees over there.
That shit, again. So let me say it this way. Number one, I'm not a gambler. All right, I've gone to Vegas, and I spent for days, and I spent like $20 gambling. I just don't believe in it. Right, I'm not a gambler, but I think that's detrimental to the neighborhood. It's terrible for our neighborhoods. Again, it's the same thing that I'm just talking about. They put something that hurts our community, because the house always wins when it comes to casinos. The house always wins. So what you're going to do is take advantage of people's hopes and dreams. Oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to spend my paycheck, and I need a little bit of money, so I'm going to try to double up real quick. They almost always lose. The house always wins, right? So again, you can't put a casino in a disadvantaged neighborhoods. I'm from the hundreds. I'm from 115th and Laughlin. I don't want that shit in my neighborhood, because I don't want them playing on the hopes and dreams of people who already don't have anything, and then they think they can go to the casino and win it. They not. I do not want that shit in our neighborhoods. I think they need to put that shit in the Gold Coast. I'm cool with Navy Pier. Put that shit in Lincoln Park. You know what I'm saying?
I know what to put out, but I said Navy Pier would probably be the best.
Yeah, don't nobody go to Navy Pier anyway. So
wow. But that is my time, Michael. I really appreciate it. Please, everybody, check out weedtravelfood.com. Check out his blog. It's very good.
Thank you, bro. I'm proud of you too, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Michael. Thank you. Until next time, I thank everybody for watching. Thank everybody for listening. Have a good Sunday and an even better week. Mama, I love you. All right, guys. I'll see you.
Peace.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good day.
No doubt, bro.
All right.
Your next step will rip you apart. Follow.